Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov, Shmi Rivka. Ani gara bePoria Elit beIsrael im Bali. So I just said for you, or to you in Hebrew, Boker Tov, I'm going to say it in Hebrew again, good morning, and Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rivka. I live in Perea Elite, Israel with my husband. I thought it would be super fun because as I have been reflecting on this year, I thought it'd be super fun to review the year with you in a timeline manner. I've been reflecting on this year because I'm going to soon be speaking to a group of calendar keepers in Jamaica. And so as I'm reflecting and taking my notes, I become aware from start to finish how totally miraculous and provisional this year has been for us. Okay, we're going to, of course, get into that as I go along. But for me and to me, this year has been reaffirming of my calling, that I have been called to do this work for however long the Father sees fit to use me in this work. So let's get into that, and I'm going to just start all the way back we'll start in July, August, go all the way back there in 2020. Before the barley ever showed up on the land, the Father started leading and guiding us in the process of the year. So we're going to take a look in this next section at how I met Asher. Asher is a Jewish shepherd. His father before him was a Jewish shepherd. Asher only keeps sheep. I become aware of Asher in, around July the 6th. There's a family that were friends here in the village. The father's name is Yochanan. And Yochanan can just absolutely do pretty much anything. I mean, he builds houses, he does home improvement, he built a marimba, my goodness. So he really has a blessed mind and blessed hands when it comes to being able to create things. And Yochanan had met Asher, befriended him, and did some work on Asher's farm for him. Asher is a poor shepherd, and when I say poor, I've been there. He's poor. Instead of paying for the work, they bartered, and Asher began giving sheep's milk to John's family. Well, I don't know how long that they were drinking the sheep's milk or how much Asher owed them, but eventually their family just had more sheep's milk than they could use. Yochanan, knowing how we live, because his family lives much the same way, I actually introduced them to the idea of permaculture, and they use components of it on their small property. But knowing how we live here with the huge sustainable forested garden that I've been working on over the last 2 years, approached me and said, "Hey, look, we've got all this sheep's milk and we're just tired of sheep's milk. Would you like to have some?" So that's when he began giving me sheep's milk. But Yochanan eventually become tired of being the go-between, and eventually he said, "Look, Rivka, why don't I take you and introduce you to Asher, and then he can just give you the milk directly rather than me." He'd go pick it up. Asher would call him, say, "Hey, I've got milk." Yochanan would pick it up. He would schlep it over here. And then, so it was just like, he wanted to be out of the middle. So it was on August the 6th that I met Asher. So a little bit about Asher. Asher only uses Rambam methods in his flock. For those of you who are not familiar with Rambam was a rabbi in Tiberias. His fame to claim, the reason he's so famous among many of the religious people is because he used only indigenous plants that grow on the land for healing and health. And so this is what Asher does with his sheep. He uses nothing that is pharmaceutical. In talking with him that first day, I understood that the Bedouins and the Arabs, they have, very large families and many head of sheep and goats in their flocks. And because it's more convenient for them, they will give the females in their flocks a hormonal stimulant that causes them to become ready to be impregnated and then all give birth within a very small window. And what that allows is to have all the ewes and nannies locked up with the babies, and then they all go back out on the land together, so it's not drug out. You're going to see what I'm talking about when we get to Asher's sheep. So he was explaining this process to me, and he says, I'm just me. Asher has no brothers and sisters. His parents are deceased. He's not married. I'm just me, and he's got about 40 head of sheep. He said, so for me, I can handle the birthing process if I don't give them an artificial hormonal stimulator. What Asher does do with his ewes is on the land, and I saw this. I didn't know. I was always told it was toxic. Apparently it's not. But I saw this plant. What he does do for his ewes is he gives them, we have a plant called a squirting cucumber, and I'll drop a picture for you in the video. This squirting cucumber will cause his ewes to produce multiple offspring without changing their natural cycle. So the day that I was there, he was pointing out to me the ones that were going to have twins and sometimes even triplets, because he feeds them this plant that grows naturally in the wild. And it made me think back about Jacob and Laban and how he put them in front of the reeds, and how, so there's so much health in the plants here on the land of Israel. These things just really fascinate me, and I love learning about them. And one of the reasons I love speaking to Asher is because he gives me that deeper connection to the land that I love so much, and the plants that I see as they come and go every year. Enough about that. So for those of you that are new to the calendar, let's take a pause and show you why we're starting with Asher and his lambs. If we go to Exodus 12:1, it says, And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first of the year to you. So by the way, this is the only scripture in the Bible that calls a month Rosh Hashanah. It says, This Hodesh shall be the Rishon Hodesh, the first Reshit month Hodesh of the Shana to you. So this is where Rosh Hashanah, biblically speaking, is. It is in the Passover season. It is not in the 7th month. That is rabbinical. Continuing, verse 3, Speak unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a household. And if the household be too little for a lamb, let him and his neighbors next unto his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Okay, so this is this out of the way. This is the verse I wanted to take you to, so we can see immediately that in order to begin a calendar to have Passover, there had to be lambs available. And the lambs had to be of various sizes because there were small households and there were large households. So part of what I look for to begin the year is, are there lambs and are they big enough? I can share with you rabbinical writings, and if I can find it, I'll drop it in a photo on the screen. I can share with you rabbinical writings where they would delay the start of the year because the lambs weren't fat enough. In other words, they had everything they needed, but the lambs were too young and too tender to begin the year. So going back to the provision of Elohim dropping into our path for the year, Asher, who raises his sheep using only natural method. I didn't go out looking for Asher. I knew that we needed lambs for the season. I had been using the Arab and Bedouin flocks. I did not know that they were chemically stimulated. So the Father wanted to make sure that this year we had his timing by causing my path to cross with Asher. So I did not find the reference that I was looking for, but I did find another, and it's going to be up in your one side of your screen here. I don't know if this is a mirror image or how that works. The sages taught the year may not be intercalated due to the young goats and not due to the lambs, to allow them to grow larger before they are to be sacrificed as paschal offerings, and not due to the fledgling doves who have not yet developed sufficiently to fly, so that there won't be enough of them to supply all those who wish to bring burnt offerings at the festival. But all these considerations may be made supporting factors in the decision to intercalate the year. And then it goes on. Let's see, we don't really need to read any of that. But here's what you need to know. What they're saying here is that they would give an extra month for these animals to mature if they were too young and too tender. Remember the heads of the households, we were to take a lamb or a goat from the flock, and we were to do it by the number of the household. So the one instance, I think there was actually two, but for sure one that I read was not able to locate it. A message was sent out to the land that the year would be delayed. They would intercalate. They would add a lunar cycle. Intercalate is a rabbinical term. They would add a lunar cycle to allow for the Passover sacrifice to become larger. So when I consider the Passover sacrifice in the calendar, it's because it is given a lot of importance in the biblical calendar, both scripturally and rabbinically, historically, to begin the year with. So having my footsteps cross path with Asher was very provisional. That when I met him in August, he had told me that the ewes were already asking to be bred, because I had interviewed him a little bit, very nonchalantly. I didn't want to be like, jump on him, like, oh boy, you're the one I prayed for. So I very nonchalantly, I interviewed him, and he said at that point the milk of the ewes were already drying up, and some of them had already began to be asked to be bred. So it was let me get my notes. So we'll finish the story of Asher. It was on January 5th. Now we'll go back behind January 5th when I start talking about the barley. But this is going to finish Asher's story. It was on January 5th that I was in a gas station because we were already in a nationwide lockdown. I was quarantined, locked down inside my house because of the big C scare, that V word. Um, I was quarantined in my house in a nationwide lockdown, and I could only go out of the house for necessary things. Groceries was one of them, gasoline, pharmacy, doctor's appointments, bank appointments. Yes, we had to make an appointment in the bank. Appointments with the post office. Yes, that was necessary too. So we were very limited. And I was actually at the gas station filling my tank to go to the grocery store. And who is in a field exactly beside the gas station where I'm fueling my car besides Asher? And he's there with his sheep. And I'm hollering, Asher, Asher, Asher. So I get to speak with Asher a little bit. Now, back to him being a shepherd by himself with these head of sheep he has, the number that he has. When he goes out to graze his sheep, we're fortunate enough to live in an area with a lot of wide open spaces that has wild foliage in this time of year. So Asher was maybe a half a mile from his house, his farm, with his flock. And Asher told me that when he is not there, or when he has trouble with Arabs that want to steal his sheep at night, that he just turns the ram loose. Asher has been thrown by his own ram about 3 times, and he's been hospitalized subsequently because of injuries he's received from this ram. And so when he goes out, he has someone, the ram, to watch the ram's flocks, and the ram is very diligent about protecting his flock. So I met him at the gas station that day, about half a mile from his house, and I'm asking him, Asher, 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 have your lambs been born? He said, yes, the first one was born October 31st. So that was very, 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 very exciting. And I'm going to drop a picture right here to show you the day I met him at the gas station. You'll see him leaning very heavily on his staff because he was in a lot of pain that day. And again, I offered to help him, but Asher's, I don't know. He doesn't take help easily. We'll just leave it there. I don't know what he's thinking. So he told me that day that there were, what did he say? 20 lambs on the ground. They had already, his lambing season had already begun, and this was in October. He said they would continue for 3 months. So that's the difference. When the Bedouins and the Arabs have their flocks, they do it in a 1-drop window, and then they go back out when the lambs are old enough. Asher lets his take a 3-month process, which really explained a lot to me about choosing a lamb for a household, scripturally speaking. So I'm going to attach the clip now of the day that I met Asher at the gas station, and you're going to see I'm very excited. And after I talk about meeting Asher, I'm going to take you to the barn that day, which was January 5th. I'll take you to the Asher's barn that day. Now, of course, I had all kinds of thoughts going through my mind. The first thought is we've never had the opportunity to know how early the sheep would be born, the lambs would be born. I don't know. I'm thinking, is this going to affect the earliness of the barley? Is this an indicator? So I had all of these thoughts running through my head at that point. So let's watch the clip next. So that was the timing of Elohim. That was Asher. And he said he has Arvaim, many, 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 many babies born now. Thank you, Father. So Asher is October. Wow.
זה עוד חודש שלישי, first. It's finished, then they come קטנות, אלה של השנה שנולדו.
Okay.
They they have a he growing, then he got pregnant
Again?
again. No, not again. It's his first.
Oh, it's his first.
Yeah,
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Then they give.
Wow. Beautiful.
See, huh? Many colors.
Many colors.
Black and white and
Wow, since October. So early.
yeah. Here is hot. The
Ken,
place is hot. They then this is hot.
Yeah. So revisiting my lesson about the command to take a lamb for a household, if we look at what Asher has told us, that the lambs were beginning to be born on the 31st of October, that I was there in January, and that they had 30 more days of the lambing season. Basically what that means is that by the end of February, the lambs that were born in November, okay, a 4-month lamb, October, the lambs that were born in October, a 4-month lamb weighs 80 pounds. Now, granted, it's still growing a skeleton, and so it's not going to be necessarily big, beefy, and muscular, but it will weigh 80 pounds. The lambs that are born when they're at their birth weight, which a lamb must stay with the mother for 2 weeks according to Torah to satisfy that. The birth weight of a lamb is 8 to 12 pounds. So if you look at the need for a household, you can see that Elohim providing these lambs ahead of the barley is just a beautiful system of providing a lamb according to the number of the household. So the next portion I want to talk to you about, the next chapter in the video, is we'll go to the barley. Now before I tell you about the barley, I want to tell you a little bit about the wheat. I have been planting the emmer wheat. It is called the mother of all wheat. It is the wheat that was used in the temple periods, and actually I found a recent article about the pyramids in Egypt, how they found this chaff of wheat and there was enough DNA in the wheat to prove that it was the emmer wheat that was found in this tomb with the pharaohs. So we can just say from the exodus of Egypt up until the destruction of the last temple in 70 AD by the Romans, that this wheat that I have been planting is the wheat that was used for first fruit offering on Shavuot or Sukkot. I'm sorry, not Sukkot, Shavuot or Pentecost. I found this growing on the land. I looked for a long time. That's another testimony, not for today. I found this growing on the land, and for 3 years I had been just taking all the seeds and planting them back into the earth in the 7th biblical month, and trying to multiply the seeds, because one day I hope to plant a whole field of that. More on that later. So I did that again this year, or last biblical year, in our 7th month. I planted these grains. I did everything by hand. I did everything the labor-intensive way, from pulling up the existing weeds that were left over from the previous growth, to taking a hoe and busting open the earth, making my own furrows, and dropping in the seed and stomping it into the earth. I mean, I figure if I can do it that way, it's going to work. No matter how they did it, at what point in history. I'm sure they used, plows and oxen, because the Bible talks about that. But I chose to do it a very, very, very primitive method, because if it will work that way, it will work anyway. So I did that in the 7th month, and it laid there. I did not water it. I did not fertilize it, because I wanted the wheat to be on the timing that Elohim would bring it forth from the earth when he sent the rains. So this little plot of little postage stamp, little patch, whatever you want to call it, that I planted is in sight of my car when I come and go. I can see it all the time. And I know for a fact, first of all, I know that on November 7th, the first hint of green began to show up on the earth. Now, we just had seen that from Asher, that his sheep began to be born on October 31st. Now on November 7th, and I did not know this then, on November 7th, the little mallow plants could be seen above the earth. That was the first thing that came out. On November 8th, the day after, I could see the cereal grasses emerging from the earth. And as soon as I saw that wheat that I had planted looking like the tiniest blades of grass sticking up, I went around in my area where I knew what grew. I know where the barley grows or where it grew last year. I knew where the other wild wheat grows. I knew where the wild oats grow. And on November the 8th, I went around and dug up these grains, these little pieces of grass, and looked at the grain that was attached to the end underneath the earth of those little blades of grass to make sure that I knew that this was the day that kicked off the season of determining the first month of the year. It was on December 24th that we were still in lockdown. And I took my husband and was traveling past the gas station where I had seen Asher that day. And as my husband and I rounded the corner to go to the grocery store, of course, I'm just so weird about my habits of always looking at the earth. I could see. I love telling the story because it's a miracle story. So we're rounding the corner. I drive. My husband doesn't, and I'm looking off to the right, and I thought, barley, December 24th, barley. I told my husband, I gotta go around the circle. I think I see barley. I went around the circle, looked again, slowed down. It was barley. So we went to the grocery store, and after we left the grocery store, I told him, honey, I'm sorry. He has rheumatoid arthritis, and things can be very painful for him. So I said, honey, I'm sorry. We're going to stop at the gas station, and I just have to go make sure that I am seeing barley, that my eyes are not deceiving me. Again, please hear me when I tell you we're on restricted travel. And Elohim, he literally laid an acceptable field of wild heirloom barley in my legitimate legal line of travel during a time of severely limited lockdown, severely limited movement in lockdown. I'll title this after I quit filming. I meant to put a title on it, but that didn't work out. This probably will be blurry because the live feeds usually are. When I get to where I'm going, I'll stop and I'll let the camera focus. And then after I've let the camera focus and I've shown you this little bit, I've got my big camera. And I'm going to take quite a bit more video and photos of what I'm seeing here. So you're just walking with me. Please do notice the road's there. The road's there. Not a hot zone. Please do notice the north side is uphill and we're going downhill. Water drains downhill. Anything that happens on the uphill side usually happens first, but that's not the case here. Also, to notice, this is a wild field. I do think, if memory serves me correctly, last year this was sown and tilled, but this year it has not been. Over there, we have stuff from last year. The way that you can tell that this is natural is there is no fine patterns of being planted in rows. No matter what direction I turn, this does not look manicured and does not look like it has been sown in fine rows. I'm doing this live to the group because I tried to buy a newspaper, and at the gas station up the hill there, they don't sell newspapers. Now we're going to begin to look at the development. This is barley. This is barley coming out of the boot. Let me go over here where there's quite a bit, still a long ways from any hot zones. And we'll sit down. I'll sit down on the wet grass. It's wet. And I'll let the camera focus in really, really, really good. And I'll let you take a big, long look at what I'm seeing. First of all, we'll just stop right here. That's barley awns. Right there. Right there. Okay. Now we're going to go over to where some of the real action is happening. These, by the way, are animal depressions. Probably the deer have been sleeping here. Maybe the hogs. This is barley coming out of, as they say, the boot. These are the awns. Looks like hairs. These are the awns. It looks like hairs. Keep going. We're still easily, how many? Oh my goodness, I'm not good at this estimation, so I'll overestimate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're easily 15 meters from the road still. This is barley. Wild barley. Let me be very specific. Wild barley. Christine and Jessa, can you please tell me, somebody give me feedback, is the video I'm recording blurry and scrambled, or is it clear? I'm waiting for a response. Congratulations, you two are the first to see this since I'm live. Can Jessa or Christine, can you tell me if the video is clear? in my camera screen, my phone screen, it looks clear. Is what you're seeing, is it clear or is it blurred? Please respond. Okay, I'll keep going. I don't know. You can see it very well. Thank you so much, Christine. Look at all the barley that's got the heads out of the boot. Look at this. Let me go way up there. Do you see that barley that's got its head out? And way up there, the barley that's got its head out of the boot. I'm going to go really slow. I don't want the camera to make those squiggly lines and make the photo unclear. Do you understand that this is just December? Okay, you guys, I have it documented in Facebook live feed, so the date is indisputable that we are seeing in an acceptable field. If it blurs now, don't worry about it. I'm just showing size. There's the road. There's where I park my car. The top of that hill's where it ends. There's the far perimeter right there. This is a big enough field for anybody's criteria. Rock-free, completely natural. This has not been sown. And we have a barley up out of the boot. And I'm going to tell you, in some cases, the barley is beginning to flower. I picked some earlier. I've come back with my good camera now that I have this documented by Facebook Live so that it can't be disputed on the date. I'm going to go to my video camera and get some really, really, really good photos. Thanks for watching. So we're going to talk again a minute about how I determine the calendar. We talked about the lambs, and we have been talking about the barley. But you'll see on the screen I pulled up Exodus chapter 9. Exodus chapter 9 verses 31 and 32 is a strong criteria for me to determine the year. I know a lot of other people use a lot of other factors, but I've learned from watching the land that if I get these components right, that the entire year will be correct. Exodus 9:31, and the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was in ear. The word in ear says Abib. And the flax was bold. Bold means like a chalice or a cup. A flax flower is a trumpeted blossom. So the flax was blooming, and the barley was in this agricultural condition called Abib, which the whole world that inspects has a little bit, maybe a little bit different understanding of this word. But in order to prove that we've gotten it right, 9:32 says, and the wheat and the rye were smitten. In English, it says they were not grown up. In Hebrew, it says they were afil. In Hebrew, it would be said, chita afilot. Chita is the word for wheat. Afilot means in darkness. So literally what that means, and there's going to be a picture up on your screen, literally what that means is that when the barley is ready, the flax is blooming, and the wheat is still down inside the body of the plant and has not yet begun to emerge yet. Remember when I took you to the field in the previous clip and you could see the awn sticking out? The wheat, when the barley is abib, is still down inside, as well as the rye. It says rye in King James, but it really supposedly means spelt. And I was very fortunate this year, accidentally discovered what spelt was, and it was absolutely down inside and the grains were not visible. So by following Exodus 9:31 and 32 to establish my year, I know that if I have these first two first fruits offering, the barley and the wheat, determined correctly by Exodus 9:32 and 33, that the other five first fruits offering found in Deuteronomy 8:8, let's go there. A land of wheat, barley, vines, which is grapes, figs, pomegranate, a land of olive oil and honey, which is date syrup. Okay, these are our 7 first fruits offering. We can prove that simply by jumping down here really quick to Nehemiah 10:35. Nehemiah 10:35, to bring the first fruits of our ground and the first fruits of all fruits of the tree year by year unto the Lord. The first fruits of the ground were barley and wheat. The first fruits of all the trees were the vine tree, which is grapes, the fig trees, the ribbon, the pomegranates, the dates, and the olives. Also the firstborn of our sons and of our cattle, as it is written in the law, and the firstling of our herds and of our flock, to bring to the house of our God, and to the priests that minister in the house of our God. 37. And that we should bring the first fruits of our dough and our offering, and the fruit of all manner of trees, of wine and of oil, unto the priest and the chamber of the house of our God, and the tithe of the ground. Again, we're just saying, the Deuteronomy 8:8, unto the Levites, that the same Levites may have tithe in the city of our tillage. So if I have established by Exodus 9:31 and 32, the barley, the wheat, the flax, and the spelt correctly, then the other 5 species that need to come ripe in their due season of first fruits offering to the temple will also be ready in their correct timing. So we'll talk a little bit about the flax now. I'll put a picture up above here. Several years ago, I think the second year I started watching the biblical calendar develop on the land of Israel, I went off on a flax hunt. And well, it's even more miraculous than that. What actually happened is the flax bloomed so much that year that the hills of the Galilee turned pink when they appeared. It was just the most beautiful thing, and I've never seen it happen that way since then. Oh, I'm sure, I hope it will in the future. I hope to see that again. But kind of that's the way that it happens is, every year Elohim highlights one component of the calendar process that he wants to teach me. And that year it was the flax. There's a lot of people who don't think that this flax, it's called pink hairy flax, there's a different name for it, was the correct flax that was used for the linen garments. But those people probably don't know the history, and I'm just going to speak briefly on it. The history of the pink flax in the Galilee is that there was a place between Mount Arbel and Migdal in the valley that runs to the Kinneret, or the Sea of Galilee, that was a producer of linen. And the Galilee, actually Israel, actually it would be the Galilee because Bet Shean is considered the Galilee. The Galilee was the largest producer of linen in the world, known world, during the Roman occupation. As well, I ran across one of those academic articles that was written about the flax in Galilee, in the Galilee. And the article explained that during this period, that the Roman soldiers could buy their wheat and barley, their grains, cheaper in Egypt than the Jewish people, the Israelites, could sell their wheats and grains to the Roman soldiers. And so buying food fell out of favor. Buying the grains for the Roman army fell out of favor. And they bought it in Egypt. So instead, what the people did that had previously sold their grains to the Roman army, they began to plant flax. And in this academic article, it said that the whole circumference of the Sea of Galilee was like a retting pond for flax. So when flax is grown, it has to be soaked in water to free the fibers from the cellulose. And there was so much flax grown during this period of time that it lined the shores of the Sea of Galilee. You're going to have a pretty hard time convincing me that this is not the correct flax. I'm going to drop another picture up here to show you how big it gets in years when we have plenty of water. So now, every year since I have found the flax, it will indeed be blooming when the barley is a bead. Well, I did not know that this was going to be so labor intensive, and that's the truth. We're almost there. Now we're going to talk about the continuing development of the barley. But before I do that, I want to just explain to you that the nation of Israel is in the northern hemisphere. So if you live in the northern hemisphere, you understand that things are ready, food that is grown is ready for consumption in the south before it is in the north. As a person having grown up in the United States, when we started getting strawberries more than just in the local area. Yeah, I'm that old. I remember when we only got strawberries when they were ready in my region. And then I remember when that changed and we could get strawberries from Florida, and it was like a big deal. So when we started getting strawberries from Florida, those strawberries in Florida, which is in the south, were ready much earlier than, let's say, the strawberries in Michigan, and they were about a month ahead of where I grew up in the Midwest. Well, the same happens here with the nation of Israel. If we go south, down around Ra'im, Katsufim, those places like that along the Gaza, it's called the Gaza Belt. That's actually a breadbasket down there. And that's the south. And the wild grains will normally ripen more quickly down there because the season's a bit more advanced. I've seen it be more advanced by a month or 6 weeks even, honestly. So I live in the north. So everything I'm telling you for this year happened in the north. Remember, don't forget our storyline. The nation, for the most part, has been in severe lockdown, meaning I have limited and severely restricted movement. So technically, just by the mere fact that I live in the northern part of Israel and the south will be further ahead, we're still getting barley in time for a February 26th, night of the 14th, Passover date. Let me look here really quick where I want to go. So on January 29th, I harvested a bit of barley and I roasted it. And I'm going to drop a picture of the roasted barley. Now, I'm also going to tell you that someplace on the screen, I'm going to put the title of a video that I made of that process that you can watch if you want more information. So that allowed us to very, 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 very comfortably keep a February 26th Passover, because remember, the South is further ahead of us, and I'm in the North, and I've got plenty for a first fruits offering on February 26, 2021. So on April 8th, I've already turned my attention to the wild wheat, and I've been watching what I planted. But I also have a few areas that I look at on the land. And until this year, the year of miracles, until this year, I had never known of a field of wheat that I could look at in real time, in situ. This that I plant over here on the property, it's situ. I mean, it doesn't get messed with. It only grows when Elohim gives it water, and it only ripens when the sun and the earth and all of that is right for it. But it's always good to have more than one location. So this year on April the 8th, we were given a field of wild wheat. And again, there's a picture up here, you'll notice. And there's also going to be the title of a video here that you can look on my channel and watch if you want more information. So on April the 8th, 2021, we were given a whole field of this gorgeous, beautiful black wheat. On April the 15th, I'll put a title of another video here. I go out and I show you that on April the 15th, this black wheat, this heirloom wheat in the north was already shattering. It was already past the stage of being harvestable. It was already reseeding itself. So on April the 18th, 2021, we kept our Shavuot. Well, we've come to the end of our story for the year. A very, very miraculous story. I am ever so grateful for His provision. I am ever so grateful for His miracles and for His love. And I don't even know how I want to end the video, other than just to very humbly and gratefully say, Elohim, you are still so supernatural in your care and provision to your people who are hungry and thirst for your knowledge and righteousness. And I just thank you for everything your hand provided us this year. What a year of miracles you've given to us. May we always be found worthy for your mercy and grace. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach.